Hello, everybody. This is Andrew Connell. Thank you very much for joining me for my webinar today. Just got started. We're starting about a minute past the hour, so intentionally starting a minute or so late, just to give people a little bit of time to tune in. I see a bunch of people still joining in right now. If you wouldn't mind, if you wouldn't just give me a little bit of feedback, if you're in Teams, if you're watching this through Microsoft Teams, if you're watching this on YouTube Live, on LinkedIn Live, on Facebook Live, wherever you're on this, would you let me know that you can both see and hear me? So you're getting the audio and you're getting the video feed for this. Just gives me a little bit of warm fuzzies to make sure that everything is working and we're 5 by 5 here. So just seeing a couple people typing. We'll get started in just a minute. Looks good. Maxwell, thank you very much over on Teams. Do I sound good though? Yes, I sound, so yes. I don't know if that means I sound good and you can hear and see me. Sounds good as well. Haha, cool. All right. So I got it over there. Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot over on Teams. And then for anybody who's joining us over on LinkedIn Live, on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live, if you wouldn't mind letting me know over there as well, I greatly would appreciate it. This webinar is being recorded, so I will absolutely make sure that I will absolutely make sure that the webinar will be made available and put up as a recording on the same place where you registered for this. So if you just go to the Voitanos website, I will post a link to the recording, or I'll post the recording on my site. In addition, I will also go through, and everybody who registered for this, you'll get an email from me with a link to where you'll also be able to watch it as well. Bo, thank you very much for joining me. Before we get started with this, I want to just talk for just a minute before I kind of start jumping into the content here. I guess first thing to start off, if you wouldn't mind, sound off. Let me know, where are you connecting from? Where are you joining me from? I'm connecting from Florida, where I live in the United States. I'm in Northeast Florida at a little place called St. Augustine, or right between St. Augustine and Jacksonville, a little place called St. John's. I'm curious where everybody else is. I know where I see a couple of these names here. I do recognize some of the names, and so I do recognize some people here. But yeah, would absolutely love to see who else is gonna be joining us here in our session today. I'm looking forward to doing this webinar today. I've done this a couple different times. I've kind of changed some things up this time. I want to start though by apologizing for having to reschedule on you and give you a last minute postponement from the webinar when it was supposed to be yesterday. I almost got the picture out and was going to show it, but I feel that's kind of going a little bit over the top, and it's not like people aren't going to believe me. Last week, I was at the European SharePoint conference in Dublin, and it was great all week. It was cold. It was cold even for, it was cold for even cold standards. It was like in the 40s, windy. A lot of days it was beautiful. Some days it was cold and rainy. But regardless, it was still, everything was going great. And I stayed an extra day, went about right before I went to bed, the night before we flew home. So my wife and son joined me. We stayed until Saturday. We flew home on Saturday. On Friday night, I was up until about 10 o'clock or so, exhausted from, like you always are at the end of a conference, and just started feeling a little bit off. Woke up on Saturday and had a light kind of a cough. But yes, a very light cough, but nothing I was like, thought it was a big deal. But then like almost immediately I started getting the chills, and I never really felt sick, just didn't feel right. And got home just fine and everything. And then that night when I got home, got really sick. And Sunday had a fever of 103.5. I don't remember having a fever as an adult that high. Couldn't shake that until Monday. And I told myself, you know what, if I feel better tomorrow, if my fever's down and I feel better, because it was causing me to be a little like loopy in the head, more than normal for those of you who know me. I feel a little loopy in the head. Didn't feel like I was really on. I said, you know, if I'm better tomorrow, if my fever's down, I'll go ahead and I'll still do the webinar as scheduled. It was down. It was only a 102.8. And I was like, I can't do this. I can barely even keep my eyes open. I can't get any work done. So that's why I postponed it at the last minute. So I apologize for doing that. And I'm also going to apologize if I get into a little bit of a coughing fit today. If all of a sudden you see my screen go black and have no sound like this, it's because I'm muting myself and I have that fade to black button that just kind of kills the video and the audio for a second, so that you don't hear me coughing your ears out. So that's for your benefit. Trust me, I wish that I didn't have to do that. Anyway, so if you're used to like watching me present like high energy and stuff, today's probably not going to be that day. It's probably going to be not a lot of high energy stuff. Now it's fever's gone, which is good. I'm feeling better, which is good. I'm still not sleeping. I got 2 hours of sleep last night. I've been awake since 2 a.m. It is, I guess I've been awake for 10 hours. So I got 2 hours of sleep, woke up at 2 a.m., have not been able to get back to sleep, and I've been working since. So, you know, we're here and we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. So last week, let me kind of switch over and just kind of make sure that when people tune in, they know what we're talking about today. Last week when I was at the European SharePoint conference, I did a full day workshop, a tutorial with a good friend of mine, Mark Rackley, where we talked about this exact same topic. Now, we didn't do it for just 1 hour. We did it for an entire day. And this is like a compressed version of that. I'm not going to be able to, we're not going to go through a ton of demos or anything. We're not going to really, if we have time, I show some demo. But the idea here was that, and I'll talk about as we get into it, but the idea here is that I find that a lot of people don't really understand what the entire breadth of all their options are when it comes to, I want to build an agent for Microsoft 365. What are my options? I'm of the opinion that I think Microsoft is very disingenuous when in their marketing and in their slides, when they show you what options you have that are available to you. I don't think they're being very truthful, because you have another option. So I'm going to show you what those options are. I want to show you kind of like when you would choose one over the other. And then we'll dive into really spending time about, you know, when you want to think about when you want to go in one direction or another one. And I'm here to answer your questions. I'm here to maybe try and help guide you in a certain direction, and share with you some of the things, my experiences on what I've seen. So this is a theme that I kind of got a little itch to scratch starting back in August of this year, when it just kind of clicked on me, like, why aren't people seeing all these options? Why do they always think it's just this or this other option, and they're too far extremes? And it hit me, and it's been something I've been kind of like harping on. And a lot of people like to hear this because they like to know, like, what are my options? But the other thing too that people are a little frustrated with is that it sounds like this is like a made up thing that I've made up, and it's not. I mean, this is flat out. This is stuff that Microsoft has pitched and sold. It's funny because there's some people at Microsoft that have reached out to me privately and said, you need to stop doing this because you're really taking some people off at Microsoft. And there's as many people at Microsoft that are reaching out to me and going, you need to do this more because you're really taking some people off and you're helping expose a problem that we have and getting this message out. So definitely resonated last week in Dublin at the European SharePoint conference, and the other times I've talked about this. So title of this webinar is Evaluate Your Microsoft 365 Copilot Agent Options. Going to run through all of that. As I said, I'm recording this. This will be made available on my website at voitanos.io. I'll show you a link for that. Let's just jump into the bio slide where you can see like my NASCAR page, one with all the links and info on it. You can go to my website and you'll find a free resources, and this will be listed on the webinar page, and I should have the recording up. Let's just say at the latest, it'll be up tomorrow morning. I don't care what part of the world you're in tomorrow morning, because it'll be done this afternoon, my time. probably in the next few hours. So it'll be up, and anybody who is registered will also get an email from me that with a link to where you can go watch the recording as well. My name is Andrew Connell. We'll spend the next hour or so. I've got about an hour and a half blocked off. So we've got until 1:30 p.m. or 13:30 UTC. So 1:30, or I guess 13:30 Eastern Standard Time. So what is that? Minus or plus 5, minus 5, whatever. Eastern Standard Time. New York. I think New York. So we got another hour and 20-ish minutes from here. If you got questions, drop them in the chat. Drop questions in the chat. Drop them in the chat. Drop them in Teams. Drop them in YouTube Live, Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions as they come up here. I've been doing Microsoft 365 development and its predecessors of SharePoint and Teams and everything, going back 20 plus years. I've been doing this since September of 2003. I was actually one of the people on the panel talk about feeling a little old. There was a 25th, the 25th anniversary of SharePoint, or 25th birthday of SharePoint is the first quarter of next year. And there was a panel of 5 people from the community in Microsoft. And I was one of 2 people from the community with 3 people from Microsoft up on stage last week, sharing our thoughts and stuff. And I'm interested to see if somebody got a video of it, because I almost broke down. I had to stop talking for a second. So it was I didn't expect that, a little awkward. But at any rate, don't know what that is, but that looks like, if I'm not mistaken, that's not cool. All right. You will get banned after the session. Posting your own company on there, not cool. Subscription edition. Don't know what that means, Jem. Subscription edition. So this is gonna be a focus on Microsoft 365 Copilot and your agent options. So let's go ahead and dive into this. I'm just taking too much time kind of getting going here. This is the fallout from having the flu recently, so I apologize. So I've spent a lot of time in SharePoint development, Microsoft Teams development, anything Microsoft 365 development related. But lately it's been a lot more time on the Copilot extensibility story and creating custom agents for Microsoft 365 Copilot. I have a company, Voitanos, where I do training and education and courses and workshops, including a workshop next week on this same topic. Virtual workshop on this same topic. Show you a deal for that coming up a little bit later. I also have a podcast that I co-host with a good friend of mine, Julie Turner, called the Code Deploy Go Live podcast. So you can go get that wherever you get your podcasts. We're on everything, and it's also available as a YouTube channel. And I've been a Microsoft's most valuable professional, an MVP, for 22 years, something like that. So doing this for a long time. And then I also have a newsletter. I have the Full Stack Devs, Microsoft 365 playbook. All right. So what are we going to cover today? Now, what I find is that when a lot of people want to start working with Microsoft 365 Copilot, when you hear Microsoft, they right away start saying, here's how you go create an agent. And they forget to really start with the most important thing, which is, why do we need an agent? Do I really need one? So I'm going to cover that first. And then it really helps to understand the different options that are available to you if you understand how Copilot works. And so I'm going to cover, from a high level, some generalizations of how Copilot works under the covers. And then we'll dive into the 5 different options we have for creating custom agents on the Microsoft platforms, including both Foundry and Microsoft 365. And I'm going to focus on just 2 of them, but I also want to cover at the end some hidden surprises, some things that Mark and I shared in our workshop last week that a lot of people had no clue about. A lot of people came up to us and they're going, that one thing that you shared which we shared a bunch. But like that one thing that you shared, that was by far worth sitting through this entire workshop and the money that we paid to attend it. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you towards the end here. I asked when you registered for this workshop, for this webinar on Microsoft Teams, a lot of you got a question that it just said, what do you want to learn from this? What do you want to get out of this today? So got a bunch of general questions like use cases and for business applications, for Copilot, governance, costs associated with and complexity considerations. Not going to go into a lot of that kind of stuff today. Some people asked about, capabilities and interactions, like how do we consume list elements and working with documents and agent-agent communication and handoff using SharePoint list data. I'll talk about some of the things that are available to you and not available to you, depending on how you create your agent. Specific functionalities like multiple choice questions from PDFs, connecting to APIs, SharePoint integration, auto tagging, automated weekly report generation, how you do some customizations with like some of the Azure services, some Azure AI Foundry or Microsoft Foundry. I guess they've renamed it again. When they use different types of agents for extensibility, and then looking at things like the different options that you have for creating agents. Two of them being the Agents Toolkit, which is more for a developer's point of view, and then another one for Copilot Studio, which is more of a power user, information worker option there. Now, if you're interested in getting answers to those questions, or at least getting some clarity on what your options are, this webinar I've made this for you, all right? Now, at the end of this webinar, I do want to show you, because some people are going to come to me and they're going to say, I want to know more, I want to learn more. At the end of this, I'm going to show you how we can work together and you can work with me so that you can get the most out of your existing Microsoft 365 Copilot investments. You've dropped the money for that $30 per user per month in perpetuity license, or I guess now it's $21 if you are a small business. You can get it for just $21. Or you've dropped, a series of $200 for those 25,000 credit packs, or you're on the consumption plan. You spent a bunch of money on this. And if you're just using Copilot for the out-of-the-box experience, you really aren't getting your value out of it. It's useful, but it's not until you start making it your own with an agent and having scenario-specific things, that's when you really start to get your value out of this. But don't worry, if you don't want to work together, that's okay. 95% of this, the first 95% of this webinar is going to be 100% educational. I'm only going to show you something at the very end if anybody is interested and lets me know. And I will show it to you at the very end though. But don't worry, this is not like a sales pitch, all right? I do have one big ask for you. I want you to learn something from this. And I want you to let me know when you learn something from this. So do me a favor, just test it out right now. If you learned something as I'm going through this, if you heard something you haven't heard before, drop a 1 in the chat. You don't have to, you can say something else, you can react, whatever you want. But right now, right, you just learned that you can type something in the chat. So drop a 1 in the chat, just send it in. I don't care if you're on Teams, if you're on LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, or on Facebook Live. Let me know that you're there. Let's make sure that people are actually alive on the other end of this. And I'm not just, I'm not just turning the lights on just to record myself doing this to go post if people want to watch the recording. So cool. Got people doing this over here in Teams. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And wow, that's a big one, Bobby. I love that. Like the big flashing one. Awesome. Thank you very much. I think you're the Bobby I'm thinking of too. So I appreciate you joining us. Sorry. I guarantee you though, that you're going to walk away from this getting a return on your investment of just your time today. All right. I may not need the entire hour and a half for this. I may have plenty of time to just answer questions and such. Now, you may first ask, a lot of people do, why do you need an agent? And kind of see it a little bit better than you could on like a projector because it gets washed out, but you got all those agents from the Matrix in the background there. Why do you need an agent? Well, let me ask you something. Have you ever sat down with like Copilot or ChatGPT or Claude or whatever chatbot you want to use, right? You ever sat down with it? And have you ever used the exact same prompt or parts of it over and over and over? Or maybe you've typed in the exact same instructions over and over. Anybody have like a note, like a text file on your desktop that you just paste in or something like that? I did. I mean, I still do, I guess. Do you ever reference the same knowledge sources and say like, hey, I want you to go through and access like that SharePoint document library. I want you to go through and access like this and look at this PDF, right? I mean, for me, it's always like, I got another question about licensing with Power Platform. And that's a 40,000 page document that gets updated every month. Okay, not 40,000 pages, but I think now it's up to 40 pages. PDF that does that you have to go through and feed that for. So I was like, go to this PDF and go process this. And I got a question about licensing. They can never figure it out. Where are these message packs? Oh, they renamed them again. Now they're credit packs. Or you ever do the inverse? Like, no, this is not a Power Platform question. Don't use that PDF. Do you ever tell Copilot not to do something over and over? Like, no, don't go through and recommend this other thing. Don't sit there and ask me these other questions and be all nice. Like, just be direct. Be very terse in your response. Be very succinct. I just need the information. We don't need to be nice to each other, right? Or maybe you do. Talk to me like a child. Talk to me like we're pirates. I don't know. That's one of the stupid example, but whatever. It's kind of fun every once in a while. Do you ever wish Copilot would connect to an external system? Or do you wish that Copilot would like take an action for you? Oh my God, Bo just dropped something in the chat. I love it. Don't use M dashes. I'm right there with you, Bo. Oh my gosh, I have gone in. I have to go through and put this. I'm a big Claude user. I love Claude, and so I've had to go in and like train it for my personality. And it's like, don't use M dash. The other thing I had to get it to stop doing, or at least I've had to train myself to stop doing, I like using emojis in like a social media post. So I think it does a good job of like, adding a little bit of color and catching attention and stuff. Not like the kind that, we're always replacing an O with a heart symbol like my mom does on every single text she sends, making it hard to read it. But I think it does a good job of breaking up like a bunch of text. But ChatGPT is like emoji, it's like emoji COVID. It's like it's everywhere. It was all over the place. It drives me nuts. So now I'm always like, okay, back off on the emojis, because now my normal writing makes it feel like comes across like going, that was written by AI. And I'm like, I'm offended. Right. So, or as like Bo's saying, it goes through and it throws in, see, Andrew Hess saying the exact same thing now because AI uses emojis. And it's like, I use them all the time. Not all the time. Right. So I don't speak in like an emoji language, but regardless, if you find yourself doing this though, when you're like constantly telling AI over and over, that's what an agent is here for. An agent is going to help you. Oh my gosh, I totally had the same typo on my slide last week, and Mark caught me on this. Okay. Agents help you create help you create repeatable, scenario-specific conversational experiences that you can use to connect external business systems and take actions on your behalf, right? The idea is create the scenario-specific thing is the most important part there, right? Think about it like this. If you had a question about an Excel formula, or if you had a question about Power Platform licensing, sorry, let's not say if, when you always have those questions about Power Platform licensing, or I guess now, the security Copilot licensing, whatever it is, would you, and you were out at Microsoft's headquarters, would you walk up to the receptionist at the main building, right? Would you walk up to that receptionist and ask that question to that receptionist? No, because that receptionist, that's not their domain of expertise. If it is, they're in the wrong role. And if it is, I suggest that she go leave Microsoft and actually become a consultant, because if you can explain Power Platform licensing, you got a career out there. I think that what you need is you want somebody that's more of a specialist. So like I have an agent that whenever I write an article, I tell it, I give it all this like rubric, and I tell it what my goal is. And I give it I ask it, I say, I want you to look at this article that I've written, and I want you to score it on a 1 to 10, 10 being great, 1 being I shouldn't have ever written it. And I want you to analyze it and tell me, suggest improvements for this article. And it'll tell me things like, I run this every time I write an article now, or every time I write like a LinkedIn post or a long form post that has an actual point to it or has a goal with it. The first thing the agent does is it asks me, it says, Do you have any key like points you're trying to cover in this article? And 2, is there a call to action that you're trying to get the reader to do? And it will look at everything. It's like, well, this section goes, it's pretty abrupt from this section to this section, or it's a lot of text, like a wall of text, and you don't have many images in here, or you don't have any examples and scenarios. And so I run it. It goes back and goes, okay, better. Now you went from a 7.5 to like an 8.5, but you can make this change too. That is a very scenario specific agent. That agent also knows that I've given it my best articles, the ones that are the most popular on my website and the ones I am the most proud of. And I tell it, hey, I want you to create a voice guideline or a voice print of how I speak. All my isms, all my little like nuances and stuff of how I write and my analogies and stuff. And I want you to see, am I including some of those things in that article to make it me? Is it to make it feel like it's not just me being very robotic? Like this morning, I'm writing a bunch of documentation for Microsoft on the SharePoint framework. And a lot of times I look at it, I want it to be robotic. I want it to do the exact inverse of that, because I'm writing it on behalf of Microsoft. It's going to be published as a Microsoft documentation, not as Andrew. But then I'm working on a LinkedIn post and I'm kind of still in that robotic mindset. And so I want to make sure that, my agent that reviews my content, I go through it I give it all these coaching instructions. Here's how I want you to do whenever I run this agent, I'm going to give you an article and here's how I want you to come back to me. Give me 3 different article titles that I could use for this that elicit one of 3 emotions, right? Maybe make it a little bit more click-worthy, not like too like clickbaity, but enough to get your attention, right? And give me some ideas for like a thumbnail to use to get people to pick in. This is why you go through and you create an agent. Now that we understand kind of like why would you create an agent, right? Let's talk a little bit now about the core Microsoft 365 Copilot concepts. Why, if I'm going to create an agent on Microsoft 365 Copilot, what kinds of things would I do? I have an agent. I have a bunch of students, and I have students that in my course platform where they log into their portal and they get access to the courses that they've enrolled in. I have I like all the e-commerce stuff in my business happens over in Stripe and in PayPal, and so I've got customer information over there as well. I have an email system to make sure I stay in touch with my customers. I have a CRM system like every like business of any size probably has to keep track of customers you're talking to or leads. And sometimes somebody will say like, hey, I bought this course, but I can't see it. I can't find it. And I don't know which email I used. And they give me a bunch of emails. So I'm like, oh my gosh, great. Okay, so now I've got to go through all these different systems and I got to go plug in like these 2 or 3 emails into all these different systems and find all the instances. When I find them all, they're going to tell me that one of them wants to be the primary. So I have to merge them all together and the other dupes that are there. So then I can find that. It's tedious going to like 4 or 5 different systems and doing that every time someone needs that question. So I created an agent, and my agent knows how to reach out to those other services and call their different REST APIs to go do those queries for me automatically. And then AI can then take all the details that come down, and it can say like, pretty good chance that this guy and this guy are the same person, or this lady and this lady are the same person. And this makes it a lot easier to get your job done and not just going through and having to type and search and everything. So it's a good reason why you'd want to create an agent. Let's talk about some of the core concepts when it comes to Copilot. Now, the first thing here on the left, the prompting part, this is something that is really not unique at all to Copilot. This is every AI chatbot works this way, okay? I'm using Copilot in the description there, but for the most part, that's you could take M365 Copilot out of that, and you could say like chatbot system instructions, okay? ChatGPT works the same way, Claude works the same way, they all work the same way. Whenever you send a prompt to a chatbot, you are only sending one part of that prompt, the human prompt. That's the thing in orange at the very bottom. All right, that's this guy right here. That's this thing down here at the very bottom. Now, I'm going over this at a high level because we're going to see how this gets generated a little bit more on the next slide. What this does is this is going to this prompt is going to be sent to Copilot, and Copilot is going to have a system prompt that Microsoft has written, or ChatGPT has one that OpenAI has written. Claude has one that Anthropic has written. And this system prompt of this instruction up here, this is something that they never share with us. They try and keep it very guarded, and we're always trying to go through and to get it to trick it to going through and get the system prompt out. This is something like where they would say, like, you are going to be a friendly assistant. You're going to help the user with the user with their query. If they ask how to make a bomb, don't tell them how to do that. Don't tell them how to do like self-harm or hate speech or anything like that. So basically setting the guidelines and the rules of what you can and can't do. All right. That's the gist of what the system prompt is going to do. The next thing that we have the ability to do is that we can, when we create an agent, is we can have our own part of a system prompt that the user doesn't see, but we can coach it. So for example, in the agent that I just mentioned a minute ago, I would say you are an assistant that knows how to go find users in different third-party platforms. These platforms include Stripe, your email system, the email system I use, the CRM system I use, and the learning platform or community platform that I use to deliver my courses. You are going to be able to take you're going to get names and or emails, and you're going to want to go search each of those platforms for all users that match that criteria, and you're going to present those back to the user. So that's what the agent instructions are. So I'm telling this agent, I'm telling the model, saying like, hey, when you get this prompt from the user, you've already got the system prompt, but then I'm adding in this additional thing saying, if they ask you how to go through and you know, what's the recipe and what's the great pattern for making really good Parmesan cheese, this model's gonna be like, that's not my job. I can go find people. You got some people? That's how I'm coaching it to do something very specific. The other piece you see down there is the stuff called memory and RAG data. So RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. You've heard Microsoft and other people talk about the fact that that they are giving like Copilot or ChatGPT, they're giving it memory. Not really. It's not remembering anything. What it's actually doing is that it's going to include whatever it's supposed to remember. It includes that as part of the prompt that's sent over to this big white box that I'm seeing here on the left. That's what's going to be sent over to the language model. In addition, I'll talk about this RAG data. This is additional context that it's going to use to be able to go find some information that it needs, or be able to rationalize over the data and that the user's prompt is set to. So now when I send my prompt saying like, hey, here's 2 or 3 users, or hey, I've got a meeting coming up today, or I have a couple meetings coming up today, help me prepare for this meeting, go give me a prep sheet for this meeting. The model's not going to know how to do that because it doesn't know how to go get data from my calendar. So, but when it actually does have my calendar items in here, it'll be included in here. So when I say, coach me through my meeting, give me a prep sheet for my meeting, that's where it's going to be rationalizing over that data that you see right here. All right. So this whole thing is sent to the model. The model does its work and it's going to respond. Now over here on the left-hand side, I want to talk a little bit about knowledge. Now, there's different types of knowledge. I like to think of knowledge and that we have one word for something called knowledge, and then we have like 7, 10, 15 words for another kind of data. We've heard it as tools, actions, plugins, skills, and some other stuff. So tools is probably the most popular among developers. Skills is probably the most popular among like end users. Actions and plugins is what people were using originally. The difference between the two is, think about it like this. Knowledge is what you know, what you learned in school, or what is part of your like instinct. So if I asked you, for those of you who are educated, if I asked you how many oceans are in the world and what are their names, right? You should be able to just, without doing any kind of lookup, you should go, oh, there's 5, 6, maybe 4. There's 5, and they are the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Indian, and you name off the different oceans, right? You don't have to go look it up. You know it. That's knowledge. It's in your head. But if I ask you, what's the stock quote? Oh, what's the current stock price of Microsoft? Or how cold is it in Helsinki right now? You don't know that off the top of your head unless you live in Helsinki or you just checked it a minute ago. That kind of knowledge is the kind of knowledge that I need to go to Google for and I need to go look it up. That's not knowledge. That's a skill. I know how to go get that data real time, but it's not something that's already in my head. I don't have that. I don't have that in my head. Oh, thank you so much. I totally screwed that up. Thank you, Seb. All right, for those of you who are on Teams, I apologize. Now I am pinned. I should be spotlighted. No, is it pinned? Did it just do it? Yeah, just spotlighted it. Okay, thanks, Seb. Oh, gosh. I do that every time. It's the first time I messed that up. Sorry about that, everyone. Okay, so I'm at 37 minutes. Nobody can call me out on that. Oh, we had you pinned already. Trust me, after 2 days with 103 fever, that's about what it feels like, Andrew. Somebody left a comment. Andrew left a comment saying that we had you pinned already. All right. So when you look at Copilot or when you look at these different chatbots, you have different kinds of knowledge. Where's it getting its knowledge from? You have at the bottom layer here, you've got foundational knowledge. This is the knowledge that the model has, the foundational model. GPT-4, GPT-4.1, GPT-5, whatever model we're using, this is the knowledge that the model has from its training, right? All that money we've heard like OpenAI trying to raise to train a model, that's the data that it has. That's from crawling the internet and crawling YouTube, well, allegedly. Then we are also going to have knowledge sources. In the case of Copilot, we'll have knowledge sources from Microsoft 365. So this is one of the features of Copilot is that it has access to the content in Dataverse, in SharePoint, in OneDrive, and Exchange, and Dynamics 365 sources. But we as developers can also go in and we can also have agent knowledge, not agent knowledge. Gosh, I got 2 typos in here. Nobody caught that one. We had 120 people in our workshop last week and no one caught the agent. Caught the other one though. All right, so we also have, as you see here, we've also got knowledge we can add to our agents. Some cool things that that Microsoft has added for declarative agents recently that we can take advantage of there as well. So this is just 2 different things, 2 different core concepts I want to share with you. Now, when you look at building an agent here, let's look over the left-hand side and let's look at this agent architecture. Now, I'm going to do this kind of quick. Right, because I want to give you a high level on this, and we're going to go through like this big spaghetti thing, and I want to start going into a little bit more depth and understanding your options here. You've maybe seen this picture on the left. This is a similar picture what Microsoft uses to show you how Copilot is set up. It's really nothing special about Microsoft. I mean, it's really every chatbot you could draw the same way. Effectively, what it is this box at the very top right here. This is the user experience. So this is wherever you're interacting with Copilot or a chatbot. So this could be the app inside of Teams. This could be m365.cloud.microsoft or wherever you get to when you go to office.com after 17 or 18 redirects. This could be inside of the task pane in Word or inside of Outlook or inside of Excel. However you're chatting with Copilot, this is the user experience. When you send that message down to Copilot, really, you're sending it to the orchestrator. This is the brains behind the outfit. What this guy, we'll talk more about how this guy works in a minute, but what this guy does, his job is to then create the system prompt or take the system prompt, add your human prompt to it, and then if you have an agent, you can add in your own additional instructions to it that will then send it down to the foundational model. This is where like the GPT-4 or GPT-5 is. But notice too that the orchestrator also has the ability to go get data from different knowledge sources. Like I could have an agent that's got some specific instructions, or it knows how to get data and ground its response based on data in my organization or based on me, my calendar. It also knows how to go reach out to get data from external services. It knows how to do skills. It knows how to reach out to a stock quote service, a weather service, a sales service, an inventory service, things that are more real time. I have no idea how many widgets we have in stock, but I have an inventory system, my ERP, it does. And so it would be able to reach out to that REST API. So this, I like to think of this, I haven't heard of Microsoft giving a name for this. I call this like the Copilot stack. Think of this as like the tech stack for Microsoft 365 Copilot. What's cool about this, when you go use Copilot, you're actually using, think about it as like the default agent, the generalized agent, the receptionist at the front door of Microsoft, right? It can go get data and do all this kind of stuff, but it's not specialized. It doesn't know anything really. It doesn't know exactly what it's supposed to do or have a specific task for your business. What you have the ability to do, though, is to go create a customized version of it. And that's what an agent is. Notice that this picture over here on the right-hand side, it looks just like this guy, because it is. What I'm doing here is I'm saying that maybe I've created my own flavor of this, and I'm saying that you don't have access to all the knowledge that you have access to. You only have access to these 2 or 3 sources. And you have some special instructions that say that you're only allowed to do these things. And this is how you're supposed to go out those processes. And you also have these other skills to maybe go choose to go get data from additional sources like real time. And then there's other stuff about autonomy, about working on its own. What's cool about this is these agents, you can use the default agent to make a call straight to one of these other agents. So I can mention another agent. Or in some scenarios, agents can talk to other agents on their own, if we allow that. Or I can just go right in and have an immersive experience and have a conversation directly to this one agent, where I want to have a one-on-one chat with it about trying to find matches for a specific customer. I see Jim over on LinkedIn said, why would we not always choose GPT-5.1 now that it's available? Because maybe one model does not fit all. GPT-5.1 is not the best model in general. It may be the best model in some scenarios, but not in all scenarios. And I see somebody over here on Teams said, money, it's gonna be more expensive, right? It's gonna be more expensive. Well, if I'm on a $30 per user per month plan, right, then do I really care? Because I'm getting the all-you-can-eat plan. But I would tell you that other models are going to be much better in certain scenarios. Like personally, I'm a much bigger fan of the Anthropic models than I am for any of the OpenAI models. I'm a much, much bigger fan of using Opus, and now Opus 4.5, for my deep research stuff that I want done. I find that to be the most powerful one. So much so that I pay for that one, even though I have a Copilot license, and pay for a Copilot account. It is much, much better. So Anthropic, their chatbot, like their version of Copilot is Claude, and they use their models, including Opus and Sonnet, which is great for like writing and stuff like that. So that's why you wouldn't go through and choose it. Bloomberg has got models that they've created for financial services that are much more in tune for like slicing and dicing data in the market. So that's the reason why you would go through and choose different models. Okay, let's look at this in a little bit more depth, because this is where you're going to start to understand, like, okay, I can create an agent, and you're going to see where the different agent options are going to give me different capabilities, but you got to understand how it works. So I'm going to do this kind of quick, but we're building off the concepts, the core concepts that the foundation that we've been building so far. So everything you see here that's in this like dotted line stuff going around here, and I'm going to admit this slide is stole straight from Microsoft, because frankly, this would be a pain in the butt to create. Second of all, it's almost perfect as a way to go through and explain how all this stuff works, except there's 2 things missing from it. One of them is a little thing that's like right here that we're going to see on the next slide. And the other one is that number 5 is apparently not secured. That's strange. It doesn't make sense that it is secured. Everything's secured on this whole thing. But I want you to think about this whole like shaded area here. This is all like in all the lines. Think about that as like the orchestrator. All right. It's encompassing more than it really should. The lines are really the orchestrator piece. And then this guy right here is the orchestrator. So what happens? I go to use Copilot and I say, I've got some meetings today. Help me prepare. Give me a prep sheet for each one of my meetings. So this is me up here sending that prompt over here to Copilot. What does Copilot do? It goes through and it generates the prompt, system prompt at the top, and says, you're a friendly assistant. You're going to help the user with their task. You have access to calendars for the user's calendar, data in SharePoint, data in OneDrive across the organization, their email, their Teams messages, et cetera, et cetera. You have access to all this other data. I'm going to give you the user's prompt. You return back to me the language model. You look at what the user's prompt is, and now that you know what data you have access to, tell me what you need to better respond to Andrew's prompt. That prompt is going to be sent over to the language model. So GPT-4.1, GPT-5, GPT-4.0 mini, whatever. That's going to be sent back. It's going to be sent to the language model, and the language model is going to return back. I'm kind of making this up a bit here, but it's pretty true. But of course, I don't work for Microsoft, so I can't prove this. But part of the system prompt says, give me a plan of attack for the data you need in a JSON structure. And so it spits back this JSON object to the model that says, I need you to go to Graph, we'll get to that. I need you to go to Microsoft Graph. I need you to get Andrew's calendar for today, for December the 10th. I need you to get it for today for all the calendar items. And then, by the way, for anybody that is on those meetings, I want you to go grab any emails between Andrew and those people about the topic of the meeting. If they've had any attachments, go grab those. If there are links or references to things in SharePoint, grab those. If they've chatted on Teams, grab that stuff as well, et cetera, et cetera. Go grab all that data. And so then the orchestrator goes out and grabs data from Graph, again, data from Power Platform, from Microsoft Fabric, from Bing, maybe from these plugins going to other REST APIs to get additional data, all the stuff the orchestrator said it needed. And it will come back to the orchestrator, and the orchestrator will then create another prompt, but this time the system prompt says, your friendly assistant, blah, 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 blah. And then after that, it says, summarize, I'm providing you with the additional data to better answer the user's prompt. So it doesn't say analyze what the user wants. It changes it and says, here's some additional data. And then the RAG part is all the data that it fetched. And then there's my prompt, which is, hey, I need a prep sheet for my meetings today. Copilot, help out, right? And it sends that over to the language model. And the language model is like, cool, I know about your meeting. I know about all the context about those meetings. I can now create a spec sheet for you, a prep sheet for you for each one of these meetings. And so language model goes through and goes blah, 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 generates a summary, gives it back to the orchestrator, who kicks it back to me, right? That's how it works. So it made 2 round trips to the language model. It may come back and go, you know what? I need more info here because some of these articles we looked at and some of these other emails we reference even more stuff. Go get more data. This is when you go to Copilot and you ask it a question and you see those little lines kind of like working longer and longer. It's because it's like this is the orchestrator going fetching data, talking to the language model back and forth. So we're hitting the language model at least twice, if not more than that. All along the way, though, what's going on is that you are also using responsible artificial intelligence from Microsoft for doing different like moderation and filtering and stuff. It's making sure that things meet the security and compliance boundary, that the data that it's getting for your calendar, only you have access to, not everybody, et cetera, and fetching all that data and making sure all of that is secure. It's also making sure that you haven't asked it to do something and it's not responding to something that is outside of one of the moderation responsible internet things. Like there's 4 different categories: hate speech, sexual speech, violence, and self-harm. And there's different levels like low, medium, and high. And Microsoft has configured how that's set up. So it makes sure that it's responsible internet, responsible artificial intelligence. That's the gist of how Copilot works. Now that you understand that, I've got one more building block that we got to talk about that is like the big secret sauce for Microsoft. And this is what makes Copilot stand out from all of the other ones. Whenever you see like ChatGPT or Claude or something say like, hey, we can get to your data in SharePoint. Connect us to SharePoint. We can do the same thing. We access all your SharePoint. You don't need Copilot. Not same. It's not the same thing. There's something called the semantic index. So remember when I said on the last slide, I said right about here, I said, we're not really going to graph, right? Because we're really not. What we're doing is we're going to something called the semantic index. What the semantic index is, let's just say that all of you, or I would guess that most of you have used SharePoint before, and you know that when you upload a document to SharePoint, it takes a few minutes, maybe a few seconds. It's going to get indexed, and you can go to Microsoft search for it as a keyword search, but a document shows up, right? But the document shows up is not the document. It's the indexed content of the document in the index that was found based on a keyword search. What a semantic index is a way to find where a term or a thing is like what I'm asking for. It's going to find other content that is closely related to what I'm asking for. When I say, like, what are the oceans in the world? Well, it knows Atlantic, Pacific, Indian. Oh my gosh, I have to keep going or I'm going to look like an idiot. Let's just keep moving so I don't waste too much time. And so it wants to find data that is closely related to what it asked. What Microsoft does is they've created what's called a vector database. And all of the content that we have access to through Microsoft Graph, when something is available to Graph, what Microsoft does is it semantically indexes it. For those of you data nerds and geeks like me, it's creating an embedding. So it takes a document from SharePoint, it creates a bunch of chunks out of it, creates embeddings from that, which is a mathematical representation of a bunch of the content, and it saves that embedding in a vector database. Common one that we've heard a lot of: Pinecone, Azure AI Search, Cosmos DB. Same, Seb. My work life runs on Claude Sonnet 4.5, 100%. So does a lot of my coding. All of that is going to get indexed into the semantic index. So when Copilot goes to look for data, it doesn't go to Graph. It goes to semantic index because it's going to be faster and it's going to find it much more relevant to that content. When ChatGPT, when Claude, when all these other chatbots say they can access content in SharePoint, they're not doing a query against the semantic index. It's not possible. Okay? It's not possible. What they're doing is they're doing a keyword-based search for the content you're looking for. They then get access to the content through your account, and then they semantically index the content in it. What Copilot does that's different is it starts with the semantic index. Find the content that's relevant to what you're looking for, and then it can go through and grab the content and get more information about the content, and that's what it's going to use in its response. It's much more powerful this way. Much more powerful. This is also a big distinguishing difference between two of our different agent options that we'll come to a little bit later. So this index is all security trimmed as well. So just like search inside Microsoft 365, Copilot is always operating as you. And so if you ask it for, give me all the information about my calendar, it is going to go to my calendar as me. So it's only going to get access to the stuff that I have access to. So if I say, hey, I want you to go give me a summary of everything that's on Jim's calendar, right? It's going to go over there and be like, Jim hasn't given you access to his calendar, Andrew. So I don't see anything. It all got security trimmed out. So it's all secure. Everything's nice and secure there. All right. So Microsoft says that, hey, your data is your responses are grounded in Microsoft Graph. Kinda. I mean, it's true, but it's not really true because it's really grounded in data that has been indexed from Graph into the semantic index. And it's coming from the semantic index because it's faster, it's better to retrieve. Now you understand how Copilot works. So now let's look at at how we can different agents that we can create. And I see Seb from the Copilot product team over here and Teams is saying, like, it's grounded in Work IQ. And one of these days, I'm going to have a few minutes to actually look into Work IQ and to see if this is more than just a marketing thing, that just a new name for Microsoft staying on the AI buzzword announcement hype chain that they have to stay on in the industry today. So I don't know. I'm going to do a one on me going like, I don't know what that is. Graph AI Insight Endpoint Work IQ. Huh? Yeah. Okay. So it's very frontier. Oh my gosh. We're hitting buzzword bingo here, left and right here. All right. So let's talk about the different kinds of agents that are available to us. Now, first thing I'm going to tell you right now, do not get misled by Microsoft's marketing. If you're from Microsoft here, this is not me slamming you, but I will say that I've sat through enough sessions from Microsoft to see a couple different slides that just are nails on the chalkboard to me, because I feel they are so misleading to customers. And I would welcome Microsoft to come into one of my sessions and sit next to me when I'm doing this presentation, or just sit up at the front of the room and watch people's reaction when I show them this. Because if you're like me, you maybe sat through a session from Microsoft where they use this slide. This is a slide straight from Microsoft, right? I cut out 2 or 3 other ones I normally do, but just like this. And what does this slide imply? This slide implies that if I want to build an agent, I can build an agent using Copilot Studio, which is all point-clicky, browser-based stuff, and it's super easy to create an agent, and I can do all this kind of stuff, and it's so easy to do this stuff. But if I'm not getting if it's not the tool that I want, I need a little bit more control over this, or I'm not getting the result that I want, then my other option is to go way off on the deep end, way over here, and I got to crack open Visual Studio and get my data geeks and my nerds and my developers out there like me to go do this stuff. And they got to go through and start getting this thing called the Agents SDK and publish to 15 channels and multi-agent workflow and using the agent framework and bringing my own model or database and memory and threads and implement that and build actions and knowledge tools. And then I got to create this thing called the Foundry Agent Service and Foundry Models. No, that is not what you have to do. There is a whole breadth of options that you have that are available to you. So this slide, excuse my language, is just bullshit, right? Yes, these are 2 options for you, but this is like saying, hey, look, you have 2 cars that you can get, or 2 modes of transportation. You can use a skateboard to go from California to New York, or I can put you in a rocket that goes 1,000 miles an hour. One of them's a little bit more expensive than the other. One of them's going to be a little bit more approachable than the other. Choose either one that you like. We all know there's a lot of things in the middle that you could choose from. Right? Although a rocket would be kind of cool. So those are not your options. These are your options. Now I want you to break these down into 2 different categories here. Everything we've talked about so far was all about Copilot. And I want you to notice how I've got this one box going across these first 4 in this category here. Because what I'm doing here is I'm not saying that we're creating our own AI platform. We're using the Microsoft 365 Copilot stack. The picture that I showed you of those rectangles and stuff in the box, I'm using what they've given us already. It's just that I have 4 different ways that I can customize how it works based on a bunch of different metrics or factors. And I'll come to those a little bit later. There is no one tool that's better than any other tool. It all depends. And what does it depend on? A whole hell of a lot of stuff, right? This is the part that pisses me off about Microsoft's marketing, is because they tell you your options are this guy, unless you're talking to the SharePoint team, which tells you it's also this guy, or you got to go way over here and you got to build out your own stuff. Maybe you're going to use Azure AI Foundry / Microsoft Foundry for this stuff. Maybe I've got customers that are doing Copilot stuff and they're going to use AWS Bedrock because they're an AWS shop. Other ones are using Google Vertex. If you do that, what does that mean? Well, if I don't get all of the stuff, the Copilot stack from Microsoft over here on the left-hand side, then what am I going to get? Well, if I'm doing my own thing, I got to bring it all to the table. I'm going to pay $30 per user per month to go use the Copilot stack. But if I'm going to build my own setup, then I'm going to have to go pay for all my own services, but I'm not going to have to pay licensing for it. I'm going to pay for consumption. It's just 2 different ways of doing stuff. Over here on the far right-hand side, you get the most control and most power of what you can do with this, but it's also a lot more work and responsibility. It's just like Superman. Great power comes great responsibility and a lot of cost, right? And a really crappy cape and tights, right? But over here on the other side, I can pay a little bit, get all you can eat, and I can choose between the different tools that are right for me. SharePoint agents, they're the most limited in what they have access to and what they can do. You use the browser to build these guys out. Skill set, what do you need for this? You need to know how to use a browser. And if you're watching this, you qualify because we're all doing this through the browser. You can also use Copilot Studio Lite, or maybe it's Agent Builder, or maybe it's back to Copilot Studio Lite. I don't know. Ignite kind of changed it up on us, and it looks like we went back to Agent Builder, but I'm not sure. And now we got a new Copilot Studio logo. Is it this one or is it this one? I don't know. It's weird. Whatever. He's recovering. Please be kind. Thanks, Lewis. Just don't make me laugh. All right. So got a couple different options here. I want to go through this kind of spectrum of these guys. To me, what I find is that it really boils down to, at least those of you who are watching this, really boils down to these two options here. One of them is not better than the other. I want to be very, very clear about that. It's two different options. The thing that pisses me off about Microsoft is that they exclude these. They really pitch that you either get this option here as Copilot Studio, or you got to go all the way over here and build out your own setup. You got to come up with your own orchestrator, use something like Semantic Kernel or some very popular one on the open source world called LangChain, or I'm using an agent service from Azure, from Microsoft Azure, or I'm using Azure AI Search to create my own semantic index. But over here, how I get the semantic index, and I've got like an orchestrator, it's already done for me. I don't have to worry about a model. They've already done that for me, and configuring it, they've already done that for me. But oh wait, I don't like that model because you got it configured that thinks I'm talking about sexual stuff when really I'm just a company that does a ton of breast cancer research, and a lot of the terms we're using, it's getting flagged as kind of questionable. And it's like, I don't like that. I don't want to. I want to change how the model works. Microsoft's like, no, sorry, this is we've configured the model for Copilot. Like, all right, well, I got to go do my own thing. So that's when you come over here and you do your own thing. You got different options here. One of the things that I would like to say here is when you look at the skill set for the different options that are available to you, is that when Microsoft pitches this, when they talk about Copilot Studio, they'll tell you it's for like low code and no code users and that kind of experience. They say it's a low code, no code tool for creating your agents. Okay. But then in their documentation, they tell you that Declarative Agents using VS Code is a pro code tool. And again, I'm going to say bullshit. That's not how you should look at it, because frankly, we could build Declarative Agents with just text files and JSON. And I don't know about you, but I've gone into all the Power Platform stuff, and I've seen some stuff that looks a lot more gnarly than just JSON and text. I mean, I've seen some people do some stuff with like regular expressions that looks like calculus with regular expressions inside Power Platform. Like, I'm a low code person. I'm like, you should see code because it's a hell of a lot easier than that. So I wouldn't look at it so much as it's a low code tool or it's not a low code tool or a pro code tool or whatever. Last week when we were doing our workshop, my good friend Mark Rackley had a good epiphany in the way that we were talking about this last week in the middle of our workshop, and it really resonated. Think of Copilot Studio. It's really situated for a low code mindset. People who are used to using more of that pointy clicky kind of tool. Whereas over here at Declarative Agents, it is built more for people who are more of a developer engineering style mindset. You could say pro code, right? So for me, when I look at this and I say, hey, I need to do source control. I need to do like change tracking. I want to put things in source control and all that kind of stuff. You know what? I get it. To me, I'm going to say you want to go over here and use VS Code and Declarative Agents because that's what you're most comfortable with. And some Copilot Studio person's like, oh no, we can do all that kind of stuff over in Copilot Studio. And all the developers are like going, I've seen how you do that. And okay, yeah, you can check a box, but that's not ALM. And like going, oh no, it's ALM. We call it ALM. Like, you can call it ALM, but that doesn't mean it's ALM. All right, that doesn't mean it's like it has that kind of like mindset to it. So I don't want to say that one is better than the other. It really comes down to, you have to look at the breadth of like what the matrix looks like and figure out which one is the right tool for you. Let me run through these different options that are available to you and show you where some of the limitations are and where some of the features are. So let me actually back up real quick. Down here at the bottom, notice the arrow going from left to right. You get fewer features, but it's less skill required and less management and governance and stuff that you'll have farther to the left. But the farther to the right you go, you get more features, more control, but you're also going to be having the skill set requirements of using that tool and managing it is going to go up, and the ownership cost or governance costs and capabilities is also going to go up the farther to the right that you go. Again, no one size fits all. No one agent no one organization is we're only going to be using X tool. You're probably going to have like a spectrum here. All right. Just want to make sure my goal here is so you understand what is the right one to choose from that you should go with for your scenario. Like for me, I know where I'm going to go because I'm a developer and I know where I'm most comfortable. And I know that I'm willing to give up some things at the expense of going in a different direction. All right. So SharePoint agents, how do these things work? These are the simplest ones you can do. This is so simple. You go into a document library, you create an agent, you give it a title, give it a little bit of instructions, boom, Bob's your uncle, you're done, right? What do you get? Well, the only knowledge that he's got access to, aside from his foundational knowledge, is just data inside of that SharePoint document library, period, full stop, that's it, right? You can't publish them, you can't go through and put them up on the internet, can't do all this other stuff. They don't get much governance over them. It's pretty basic. That's okay. That might be all we want in this case, right? Like I want to create a SharePoint agent where all my taxes are, right? For the last few years that I store in my own SharePoint site, right? Notice here, no skills, can't reach out to REST APIs, can't do a whole bunch of other stuff, no autonomy, just very basic. Cool, that's all I need. I'm good. Next option, Copilot Studio Lite, such a stupid name, used to be called Agent Builder. What is this? Well, this is the guy, switch over here real quick. This is if I was inside of, where's my mouse? Hello, mouse, where are you? This is if I'm inside of the Copilot experience and I come over here to New Agent. When I click on this, oh, look, it's not even got yet another new icon here. Oh, wait, and another new icon. Oh my gosh, guys, come on. So this is when I want to go create this agent, is I'm creating an agent using the Agent Builder or Copilot Studio Lite. You're like, well, no, it says Copilot Studio. No, technically it's Copilot Studio Lite. How do you know that? Because I have the decoder ring and Seb's going to back me up that I'm right here. If you were over in Teams, he'd back me up over on chat. Help me out, Seb. Seb's on the product group. But, so I'm not lying about it. But this, if Seb is still with us, hope he didn't bail out on us. Hopefully something didn't break and he's got to go deal with it. Is it developer mode again, Seb? So this guy, he can do a little more things we can do on SharePoint. We can have instructions, we can have knowledge, like go over here and start building out an agent. You can describe what you want the agent to do. Let's see, I want to go through, I want to create an agent to help me to process PTO requests. Hit enter, and it's going to go through and start building out my agent. All right. So, ta-da. Lewis says, "Are you not building a declarative agent as well with Copilot Studio?" Not really. Not really. Remember, you don't have as much control over it as a declarative agent. I could package, I can deploy in different places there. All right. Just say light in the header here. We'll clear up some confusion. Totally agree. Totally agree. So this is the agent that's going to go through and create. Now let's create a name for your agent. I don't want to do this. I could just go through and say configure. And then this is where I'm going to start to see like, oh, look, we get a name, a title, there's some instructions. And then I can add in some knowledge. Notice I'm limited in the knowledge I have access to. So SharePoint, Teams, Outlook, web, go to websites. Maybe I have some other data sources I can choose from here. There's a connector, there's enterprise websites, but not a whole lot of stuff. Capabilities, I can create images, I can create documents. Can't do much more than that. So not a whole lot of stuff that you can do here, but a little bit more than I could do with a SharePoint agent. All right. So these guys are a little bit different. Intention for these guys is more like a small group. So I'm building an agent and I want to just use like with a couple of my friends or a couple of my colleagues, something like that, right? I don't need to publish it across the entire organization. The next option that I have that is available to me is when I want to go up to Copilot Studio or Copilot Studio Full, right? Or I don't know, the bigger one. So this is when you go straight to copilotstudio.microsoft.com. This is the part with this Power Platform. So your agent here does not live in Microsoft 365. It lives over inside of the Power Platform. And it has all these different capabilities, and we've seen the different demos associated with this of where it can actually, or how it runs and where it's going to go and where it's going to work, right? So I have access to more knowledge. I have access to more skills I could do. I have access to all the Power Platform connectors that are available to us. I have access to the premium connectors if I've paid for those as well. Everything, I get access to all of that. So I can still go through and do a lot of the same stuff, right? That I could do, or all of the same stuff that I could do with Agent Builder, but I could do a lot more with Copilot Studio Full. And I have a lot of different publishing options as well that I don't have if I was not inside of Copilot Studio Full. Like I can publish to other channels, not just teams. I can publish to my agent, my public website. Be careful about that. I've seen some pretty interesting demos where people have published an agent with no authentication to the public internet, and really interesting Twitter thread and video from DEF CON of somebody going to a well-known brand's website and dumping a CRM, their Salesforce CRM, through their agent because the person that was creating the agent didn't have like an engineering mindset, but was given the ability to go through and publish the agent to the public website and didn't think about security. And like, oh, nobody would go through and connect it to this. Look at how cool this really is. Like going, yeah, look at how cool this is. Go suck down all your leads. The other option we have is using something called the Agents Toolkit. And this is an extension for Visual Studio Code. So what this is you're creating a Microsoft Teams app and you're using JSON files and text files to define how your agent works. We get access to almost all of the exact same of the knowledge that we have access to in Copilot Studio. We have access to more stuff actually than Copilot Studio has, or that's not really fair. It's more like a Venn diagram. So you can think of it more like there's an overlap between Copilot Studio Full and Declarative Agents where they can do a lot of the same stuff, but then there's like maybe some asterisks on those same things, like they work a little differently depending on which one I'm in. And then there's things that each one of them can do and have access to, both skills and knowledge that the other one can't do, right? And I'll explain why in a minute, right? This is the dirty little secret. So this allows me, one of the nice things with these is that this is more of a developer's tool. When you create this agent and you package it up, you're left with a zip file or an app package that you can deploy to your tenant, and you can control who has access to this agent. You can also share it with other individuals, as of the Ignite conference just recently. So this is another way of going through and creating your agent that gives you a little more control over how it's deployed, who can do this, who has permissions to create these. In fact, the agents that Microsoft creates and that they have shared, like Researcher and all those other ones, they're all done using this approach, using the Agents Toolkit. And these agents are called declarative agents because they're all declarative inside JSON, using JSON and text files. The text files are for the instructions. All right. Now, I want to start transitioning a little bit here to like some hidden surprises with this. Now, I'm going to cover just a few things here and tell you a couple stories. I'm not trying to scare you, but I want to just kind of open your eyes to some stuff. A lot of times people had no idea this stuff was even going on. A lot of people think that if I create an agent using any of those different tools, like I just choose the tool that I want and it's going to be the same thing. Like somebody goes and creates the agent that I'm creating using Copilot Studio, and I go create the same thing using Declarative Agents, and we use the exact same instructions and the same settings and everything, and we're accessing the same data in the same tenant. We're going to get the same response if we put the same prompt in, right? Nope. Maybe not. Maybe not. Why is that? Remember this thing I talked about with the semantic index a few minutes ago, right? Well, if I build an agent using Copilot Studio, the way it gets to the semantic index is not the same way that a declarative agent created using the Agents Toolkit gets the semantic index. The Copilot Studio, for example, has a known limitation that if you have files inside of a document library in folders, subfolders in a document library, that it can only go a certain number of levels deep to find that content. Why? It's the way they've written the engine, right? Because they don't go directly to the semantic index. They have to go through, they have to get to the semantic index through an API. There's nothing wrong with that. But now they're the ones that are going to get to that data through some extra layer. Whereas if I'm over on the Copilot on the ATK option to go get data from SharePoint, I'm not going through some API, right? I'm going straight to the semantic. Copilot's going to go straight to the semantic index to get to that data, right? I have seen someone create an agent and they get frustrated saying Copilot sucks. I use Copilot Studio. Well, they didn't tell me that first. They said Copilot sucks. I created my agent and I'm only getting 3 documents back from SharePoint. And they're like, this is ridiculous. I know there's more in there. I know there is, and it can't see it. Copilot sucks. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm like, how'd you create it? I'm like, Copilot. I'm like, no. How did you create it? Copilot. You didn't create a Copilot agent with Copilot. Yeah, I did. What did you use? Here's the URL. Okay, that's Copilot Studio. Look at the URL. Same thing. No. No, they're different, right? They're different. Let's go through and create the same thing as a declarative agent using an Agents Toolkit. We did that, right? The first time, first prompt, 9 or 10 documents came back. They're like, what? It's the same thing. They went back and ran theirs, recreated it, Copilot Studio. Nope, same thing, right? They're getting the same experience back. Why? Here's the dirty little secret. Because when you create your agent using Copilot Studio, it's not using the same orchestrator that the agents created with the Agents Toolkit are using. If you create an agent using Copilot Studio, you are not using the same orchestrator that all of those Microsoft agents, Researcher and all those other ones that they're so proud of, that they use. They're not. But if you go create an agent as a declarative agent using the Agents Toolkit, you are using the same orchestrator that Microsoft uses for all those first-party agents. So ask yourself, why aren't they using Copilot Studio to create those first-party agents? I don't have to answer that. I just think it's a fair question. Now, of course, let's look at this and just say like, oh my God, but I got to train all my people how to use the Agents Toolkit and VS Code to build these agents. No, not all of them. But for those enterprise agents, the big agents, the important agents for your entire organization, the ones you are a little more mission critical about, the ones you want to like have a little bit more like development and test on and have more iteration for and everything, version control, because it's always, agents are always an iterative development process, right? Always. Do you want to go through and like, do you want that kind of control, right? Or if you don't need it, like, no, I'm just creating an agent for like 6 or 7 of us. Oh, well then Copilot Studio is fine. Right? I thought it was great last week that a lot of people were saying we use Copilot Studio to create agents using it as like a proof of concept because we can whip it out pretty quick. You're right. And then we go over to the Agents Toolkit. It's like, really, you guys are actually doing that? Like, absolutely. Some people are like, hey, but you don't have things like topics or entities like they have over in Copilot Studio that or they have in Copilot Studio. You don't have those in declarative agents. Like, it's true, but if you saw my demo last week at the conference, I didn't need it. I just used some instructions and actually created the same experience faster with just some good prompt engineering. It's not hard. All right. So I'm seeing some ones popping up in the chat. Maybe that's something new to you. Here's the big thing I want you to think about with this. The tool that you use to create the agent is going to dictate the orchestrator that's used. There is no way to flip it over to the other one. Whatever you choose, that's the orchestrator that's going to be used. The real dirty secret is there's not just two orchestrators at Microsoft. There's a bunch more. Now, it's not a good story. They're not very proud of it. If you dig in the docs, you'll find this. They're not going to really talk about it a whole lot. And they would love to go through and merge them all together. And maybe we'll get there someday. Maybe. Supposed to get peace in the Middle East one day, supposed to be able to reach go back to the moon, get to Mars one day. Maybe we'll get there. But I mean, let's just be real here. Like, I don't see them doing, they got too many announcements. They want to do new features instead of build something out like this. Got to go through and we got to make a new logo for something. We got to change a name for something every few months, right? So just keep that in mind. All right. There's a lot of differences between these different orchestrators. So for example, the orchestrator's knowledge, when you think about the differences of when it comes to knowledge for the different orchestrators, the way that they access the semantic index are going to be different. I talked about that. Also, in Copilot Studio, all of the other content sources that it indexes, like Salesforce and ServiceNow and all that content gets indexed into Dataverse, not into all of like Microsoft 365. When you go over to Copilot Studio and you say, here's the files I want to go through and add to my agent, guess what it does? It pulls them out of SharePoint and it puts them over into Dataverse and it indexes them in its own little semantic index over there. It doesn't even use the original semantic index. So if I upload files, you're going to have a delay. If I update a file, you're going to have a delay before it gets re-indexed and before the polling of the Power Platform pulls the updated file back over and re-indexes it over inside of Dataverse. It's not the same experience. However, if I go into the Microsoft Admin Center and I create a external connection to like ServiceNow or Salesforce, it will index the content from those different sources into the semantic index that all of Copilot has access to, and my declarative agents have access to it as well, but not the agents created with Copilot Studio, right? And with that, those are pretty cool because you can actually have things like you have more control over the data that goes in instead of just all or none, where you don't really get much of a choice with the data that goes in. And you can also go through and set up different security features like ACLs or access control lists, so we can map like have things uniquely permissioned. So like, for example, I use Notion as my like second brain for all my notes and meeting notes and where all my writing and stuff is. It's a separate app. So it's like predates Loop, and but it feels a lot like Loop. It's just not living in 365. I created a custom Copilot connector that periodically every day, every couple of days, it does a full index, and every multiple times a day, it gets a delta incremental index to where it takes content from Notion, sends it over to 365, that gets via graph, gets indexed into the semantic index. So now when I go to Copilot, I can see all my data from Notion merged with all my email. I do the same thing for all the transcripts of my courses. Somebody asked me a question about the SharePoint framework. I know the answer, right? But I want to ask Copilot so it can tell me, here's the answer. I'm like, well, I knew that. And it goes, and you mentioned it in chapter 5 of lesson number 4 in chapter 5 in this course at about 5 minutes in. Like, oh, cool, thanks. I didn't know where that was. I got to go through and cite that for my student. That's some of the cool stuff you can do with this. And also the different capabilities for the orchestrators. They're going to be different. For example, guess what? Most capabilities are going to show up in the Declarative Agents orchestrator before they show up inside of the one for Copilot Studio. A lot of time, or sometimes, right? And nobody's going to confirm this, but sometimes I've seen capabilities show up in the Declarative Agent orchestrator that aren't even announced, but you can see they're there by looking at the schema. And a new conference comes around, they build or ignite, and they don't even announce it. And the next time the conference comes around, Copilot Studio has that capability, and then they're talking about it, but only for Copilot Studio because they're catching up. Like, oh, really, guys? Come on, let's play on the same page. So the issue with like Copilot Studio-based agents can't talk to, or orchestrator can't talk to certain things over like in the semantic index or have the same kind of access to it or to the content that's being indexed from external connections. You're like, well, what about the other way? Can a declarative agent access Dataverse tables? Absolutely. My agent uses the leads and contacts tables inside Dataverse because I use D365 Sales for now as my CRM. And so I have a declarative agent that looks at a bunch of different sources for my users, and it looks inside my Dataverse tables for those as well, right? That's how it stores its data, is uses Dataverse. So just making you aware that there are some differences between these guys. I want you to think about the different options. Now I'm going to come back to this slide in a minute, right? But this is the kind of questions you want to sit down and have a conversation with your users and with your organization and say, like, when does it make sense to use these different tools? Who's building the agent, right? If I'm building it, I'm probably going to be using the declarative agents with ATK and VS Code. Why? I'm a developer. I've got that mindset. That's where I'm most comfortable, right? But if it was going to be my friend Mark Rackley from last week, he's like, I'm more proficient over at using Copilot Studio. That's not a good or a bad thing. It's just a thing. right? But maybe that's not the most important thing to them. Maybe it's going to come down to one of these points farther down. Got governance requirements, right? Oh no, I got to make sure that whoever's using this, we have full control over when this thing gets rolled out. Well, who's going to do that? Oh, I need to make sure it goes through all these different like groups and they review it. Oh, well, I mean, it's not as easy if you're doing like SharePoint agents or agent builder based agents, Copilot Studio Lite, whatever, or Copilot Studio Full, right? You're not going to have as much control over that, but you have a lot of control when you do it if you're using the Agents Toolkit and Declarative Agents. All right, a couple different options there. That's the software development lifecycle thing. Publishing and sharing requirements. You have more publishing capabilities when it comes to Copilot Studio. Also, just make sure you know who's having the ability to create the agent and publish it, because maybe and see what things they're actually adding to that agent. Should they have the ability to publish it to like the public internet when you're connecting it to like line of business data for your organization? Maybe, maybe not. That's your job. That's not my job. Just think, these are all just questions you need to ask yourself. Some of these points are going to be more important to some of you than others. One of those points may be incredibly critical to your organization, is going to skew you in one direction. It just depends on the organization, who's building it, who's using it, the whole organization, or just 10 people in the organization. What knowledge sources your agent needs to have access to, what actions the agent needs to be able to take. Does it need to be autonomous, or does it need to be triggered? I've gotten pretty triggered doing some agents before. At developer mode, Seb, got pretty triggered last Monday. Did not work in front of 120 people. I'm kidding. It did. Not all the time, though. Excuse me. So it's just all of this stuff gets really confusing with this. So I see the same thing that what you're saying there about the difference between using Copilot Studios and a declarative agent versus a custom engine agent. And this is one of those things that Microsoft does not talk very much about this. And I think too, when you go over to Copilot Studio, I think they blur the language they're using into what's really happening, because I've heard them say things and I'm like, wait a minute, you just said X and that's not what that really is. And they go, yeah, it's just like this. And I'm like, no, that is actually a thing over here. Jim, I don't have time to do that because the webinar's only got 2 more minutes. I got one last thing I want to wrap up to. So I'm not going to demo it. The idea was just the different things you can do. Because, I mean, an agent is just an agent. I do want to show you something though in just a second here. I'm happy to stick around to answer any more questions here. So if you guys have any more questions, go ahead and post them. But I do want to wrap up for people who had a hard stop at the bottom of the hour, as our workshop or our webinar is over in looks like in about 1 minute. So if you'd like this, I would love to tell you how I can help you with this. If you'd like to learn more, if you wouldn't mind just dropping a 1 in the chat, and I'm more than happy to go through and to show you, to explain something on that you might be interested in that I'd love to share with you today. So, I already got 1 right there. So let's just keep going. All right, I'm not going to right there. Now, I'm running a workshop, a virtual workshop. This is the 5% at the end that I told you about at the beginning of the workshop. I'm running a workshop next week. It's a 3-day virtual workshop, live virtual workshop. It's a mix of both live and pre-recorded demos that is running on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week. Runs from 11 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's 2 90-minute sessions separated by a 30-minute break. And it's all about creating agents using the Declarative Agent and Agents Toolkit approach. All right. So the workshop is normally $349 per person. However, I'm in the middle of running towards the end, it looks like, of running my early bird sale, which is $50 off the first 25 seats. Already had, I ran a sale last week of like the end of the year sale, but I've got another 11 seats left, or at least I had 11 a couple hours ago of the early bird seats left. So you can enroll in this for just $299 if you are one of the people to grab one of those last 11 seats before they're all gone. The workshop, I'll just show you really quick. If you come over to my site, where's my mouse? If you just go to oitanos.io. Oh, that's a little too zoomed in. Let's back up a little bit. And right, if you scroll down, you'll find Copilot Extensibility, or you can choose Courses up here at the very top and choose Copilot Extensibility. You could jump straight over here and go to our live workshop that's listed here. Or if you scroll down, you'll find it right here as the Build Declarative Agents for Microsoft 365 Copilot. This will also be in the link that I sent out to everybody who registered for this workshop. Here, you can learn more about this. Oh, looks like there's 12 seats. I forgot to decrement it by 1, my bad. There's actually, that's not a live number, so I got to go back. I have to update this real time. I got to fix that. But I'm going to go there and explain everything about the workshop. It says it's 2 days, but I've added in a third day because Seb, who's joining us here, they announced some really cool stuff at the Ignite conference. I'm going to show how to do MCP servers. I'm going to show how to do talk about. Yeah, that's a lot of me. Let's get me out of there. Good point. There is I'm going to show how to do embedded knowledge, and there's some other stuff I'm going to show you too that's new. But I've got a pretty cool scenario that I'm going to run through with you that we're going to walk through this whole thing. The way it's set up, if you come over here, you can go to the program agenda, and I list out how everything works. So we've got 2 sessions per day. Like I said, 90 minutes, then a 30-minute break and 90 minutes. The sessions are live sessions, so I do live teaching and live demos. And then at the end of the day, you also, the recordings from the live sessions are posted in your student portal that you have access to. So if you couldn't join live, you have access to watch those within a couple hours of them finishing. But you'll also find instructor-led demonstrations of me creating the demo step by step that I did during our live session. So you can sit back and watch to see how it's done. You can watch it, pause it, do it yourself, go back and rewatch it. There's a way to ask questions. That part is all self-paced, right? You get access to all the content for 8 weeks following the last day of class. And by then it'll probably be built and there'll be some new stuff to share. So you can see me do this workshop again, closer to the second quarter of next year. I've got a bunch of students who've gone through this. I got a bunch of testimonials here that you can go take a look at. Even my co-presenter learned how to do it because from last week, because he joined me a couple cohorts ago for this. So anyway, there's a lot more to it here. You can go check it out on my site if you'd like to learn more. There'll be a link to this in the link to the workshop as well in the email that you get when the recording has been posted if you registered for the webinar. But you can go jump on and register right now. I will tell you though that once those early bird seats are gone, they are gone. Then it goes back to the regular price of $349. So I'm really looking forward to doing this. Got a bunch of people joining me from my workshop in Dublin last week. Excited to do this one. And let's see, I'm almost done. Am I done with my slides? Oh, I've just got some additional quotes here. So let me, I can't get my slides. There we go. So the testimonials, I don't need to go through this because they're all on the slides or on the website if you'd like to look at this. These are some of my former students who've run through this workshop in the past who got a lot out of it. And let's see, what was the last thing I wanted to show? Oh, there's Mark. That's before we started co-presenting. Here's a list of everything you're going to learn. You get that more of that on the website. You're going to get even more than this because I've added some stuff. I added a third day to the class to give us a little bit more time and to have more time for Q&A and have more time to cover some of the new cool stuff that Seb announced. Seb and his team announced back at Ignite a couple weeks ago. Thank you very much, Seb, for all that cool stuff. With that, I want to thank everybody for joining me today. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you got. It's already gone over 5 minutes, so I'm happy to go over by another couple minutes if anybody has any questions that did not get answered. So I'm going to scroll back through some of the chat and see if there's anything here that I did not cover. How'd you guys like this? Was it a good webinar, or did you learn something? Thanks, Lewis. I feel better, just a little cough. So, yeah, I wanted to get this webinar in. I was very tempted this morning when I was coughing to cancel it out. So, hey, Seb, thank you very much for joining us too today. Seb owns like the developers. Hope I get this right, Seb. Seb owns the developer story for like the Agents Toolkit on the Declarative Agents side for Microsoft. He's joining us here inside Teams, and he's active in the chat. So he's the one I've kind of joked around a little bit, poked a little bit when I find something. I'm like, hey, Seb, is it supposed to work like this? So love for him to join us. I see some people here are saying like, oh my God, I'd like to do this, but hey, I don't know if my schedule is going to allow it. Remember, it's all recorded. I literally have like a group of like 10 people from New Zealand and Australia who decided that they knew that they were not going to be joining live. It's fine. I mean, I'm still going to be able to answer questions. If you have questions, if you post them in my community, and you'll definitely get your questions answered. So there's ways to ask questions in all the recordings and all that stuff. You just don't join live. You're still going to see the same stuff. So you don't really miss out if you're not going to join live. Let's see here. So let me kind of like let me scroll through Teams real quick and see if there's anything that I've missed. See if there's any chats or any questions that were posted in Teams that I missed. Nope. Okay. So let's come back over here. Let's see. I'm going to repeat one or two of them that I did see kind of go back and forth with that's all some go back and forth on the chat in Teams for those of you who did not watch it on Teams. Let's see. So Seb was asking like how he's asking from the product team. He's asking us how would we name this intermediate approach to creating agents? And I think what he's asking here is like, what about like creating agents that is not a pro code approach, but you're using like a developer tool set? And I think it's more, I like the idea of just like, to me, I don't know if you want to call it an intermediate approach. I like the idea of just kind of saying like, I think that the thing is we don't want to lead saying that it's a pro code approach, because I think that right there, it's a loaded term in the exact same way. It's a loaded term in the exact same way that if I say that, hey, you're using a low code or a no code tool, let's put this back up. You're using a low code or a no code tool. Like to me, I'm thinking like, that's not what I like to use here. I don't want to use a browser-based tool. I want to go through and I want to have access to the files and have more control over what I'm doing with this. So I think it's just more like the mix of declarative and custom agents and saying the different tools here. I don't think that, even if Copilot Studio is creating a custom engine agent, like everyone sees custom engine agent as it's running over in Foundry. It's not running on the Copilot stack. And so when Copilot Studio does that to me, super confusing. The whole, like, to me, it's more like, instead of talking about the tool, it's talking about the orchestrator. It's really talking about the orchestrator to me. So, and that's the part where I don't like the pro code, no code. I just think that the alignment of how that's set up just is a little confusing. Andrew Hess kind of backed that one up as well. He's like, going, good point. Visual GUI compared to writing code. Yeah, I mean, that's really the difference. It's a mindset. It's what tool you're more comfortable with. Bo say he doesn't mind the term declarative agents. I don't either. I think it's good, because I mean, to me, that's what it is. And someone's like, well, yeah, but I mean, I'm using code. I'm like, no, I don't need code. I mean, yes, there is a domain specific language I can use. I prefer it to build my agents, but I don't have to use it, right? And someone's like, well, what if you need a REST API? Well, what if you need a REST API and you're in Copilot Studio? You're going to need a developer to do that, right? Well, yeah, I got to go get a developer. So I can't do that in Copilot Studio. Like, well, I'm a developer and I could do that in VS Code. So VS Code's a tool I could do it in. And it's just, it's too messy. I just think that that Copilot Studio is just pitched as like the tool for everyone to build every agent. And I think it just doesn't really hit the mark as well. It demos great, but in practice, it kind of like it leaves a lot to be desired. Let's see. Will declarative agents have document limitations as well? They can access large files stored in SharePoint. I think it was Nishant asked that. Yes, absolutely. They totally can. I think Lewis, I was trying to find your question, Lewis. Oh, there it is. Lewis said, but are you not building declarative agents as well with Copilot Studio? And Seb said, no, Copilot Studio creates custom engine agents except when you are, quote, extension Copilot for Microsoft 365. Which, like, that kind of nuance there, that's the part that's just like, I need a decoder ring for this. Again, where's that 40-page PDF from the Power Platform guys to clear it all up that I really don't need? I really need Copilot to explain that. And Kita said, I've noticed that when we create custom Copilot agents, they get very limited thinking time compared to the agents that come with Copilot, like research or analytics. Is that something we control? Kinda. Like, you can't control how long it's going to take. It's got a short kind of comeback on it, but how long it waits, that's something that's going to be baked into the orchestrator. Okay, so because it's two different orchestrators, the declarative agent one with ATK, the code name for that is Sydney. That's what the original name was. I don't know if Microsoft wants that to get out, but that's, I mean, they've said it at conferences. The declarative agent orchestrator that we get when we create agents with ATK, we're using the orchestrator called Sydney. I have no idea what the one for Copilot Studio is called. Sydney I think it has a little bit longer window before it times out. So one of the things you want to think about too is the data that the time that it takes to respond. You don't want to teach, when you create an agent, you don't want to teach it how to do everything in the world, because it gets confused and tries to do everything in the world when it gets a prompt. Remember, focused, right? You don't want to have it say, like, I could have customers everywhere. Oh yeah, I got them in CRM, and I got my email system, and I got them in Stripe, and I got them in my course platform. And then I could go further with this going, oh, you know what? They follow me on LinkedIn. They follow me on Blue Sky. And they also follow me on this other one. I could go through all those other REST APIs and get so much more data from other places. You're like, hold on now. Is that a good idea? Because now my agent's going to have to go talk to up to 10 different REST endpoints just to get data before it can even talk to me. It's going to slow it down. Think about the user experience. So you can't control that, but you can control how much data you're giving it and access to the tools you're giving access to. So you're limiting it in what it can do. Think like I'm telling a child to go do something. Talk to it like it's a 3-year-old. I don't say, go clean your room, then go do the dishes, then go vacuum the living room, and then go do your homework. No, I'm like, you're going to do 4 things before you can play. And go outside and play with your friends, right? And they're like, what do I do? Like, go clean your room. Okay. Boom. Come back, clean their room. If I tell them, go do all these things, and they come back 5 minutes later, did you do anything? Yeah, clean my room. What about the other stuff? What else am I supposed to do? Oh, that's right. I got to go. Dishes. If you're like, oh, kids don't do that, then you don't have kids. Let's see. Beneficial, learn something. Thank you, Andrew. You're welcome. Seb, always great to hear about the tech stack and how it's perceived by the community. You're welcome. I hope I didn't do too much stuff. Lewis, sweet. Awesome. You registered. Great. It'd be awesome to have you. I appreciate. I hope that was it was still there for you. The early bird. Maxwell, I found the understanding of semantic index very useful. It gives great context on the advantages of Copilot based on the tools versus more custom approach. Great. I'm glad that helped. Chris, I'm not sharing the slides. The slides will be available as when you watch the recording that will be posted later today. Bo says, in addition to the SharePoint files question, there are recommendations on the SharePoint file size if you're specifying SharePoint sites and folders in your manifests. Yeah, there are. For example, 20 files, file max to 36,000 characters, which is about 15 to 20 pages. It all, like, a lot of this too really depends on where the agent's being used. Like, there's so much weird stuff. Like, if I have a big Word document, and I'm trying to get Copilot to, like, go analyze that Word document or get stuff in it, it's going to have access to part of the content. But if I open the Word document up in Word, and I open up the Word Copilot or app chat inside the Word app, it has access to the entire one. Like, okay, whatever. So Ankita says, so for the live workshop, how long will we have access to the recordings at a lifetime? It's not lifetime. You'll have access to the recordings for up to 8 weeks, so 2 months after the conclusion of the workshop. And I don't want to promise anything right now, but let's just say I would love to be able to have another way to extend it at the end of that for a pretty good deal and get more than what you have registered for. But I don't want to promise that because I've got a bunch of work to do to get to that point. So, but yeah, there'll be, I mean, if I do this in the future, there will definitely be discounts for people who want to enroll, who have done this in the future at a very deep discount to join the latest cohort. Okay, so that's everything I saw over here in Teams. Let me go jump back and check with over here in the chat. Jesse Rogers says that she's registered now. Awesome, Jesse, great. I'm so thrilled that you're going to join us. You said, oh, now I'm working backwards. Sorry, you asked the question. Now I'm going to add, okay, I should have answered your question before you registered. You should have held me to it. All right, so let me go back. You said, I thought you could build declarative agents in Agent Builder with embedded knowledge. So if I have a non-licensed user, they can use that agent for free, no graph data. Yeah, so this gets really confusing. I don't know the entire like permutation or the entire table of what you get, what you don't in all of the different experiences here. It's one of those things where when I don't start looking, I'm more pragmatic because the matrix is not only so big, it changes so frequently that to me, it's just a waste to try and keep all that in your head. So what I end up doing is I more talk about the scenario, find out what the experiences are, and it's like, okay, here are your different options. Then I go look like, okay, with that thing right there, let's go see what's different about the different options, and here's what your trade-off is going to be at the time we make that decision. And then by the time the agent's done, it could change. So I saw Nishant said, back to Bo, does this limitation apply to both Copilot Studio and declarative agents built with ATK? The differences between each one of them, there will be differences between each one of them. In fact, I'll even go further than this. I heard Mark say this last week during our workshop when answering somebody's question, and I just sat there like slack-jawed. They were uploading content, or they were trying to point to content that was already in SharePoint in an agent and include that like as an embedded knowledge within their agent in a Copilot Studio based agent. And they were having trouble getting it to work. But instead of going through and picking the content from SharePoint, there's another option on the UI where you can say upload files instead of like selecting files, and you upload files. And what it does is it will pull them from SharePoint or OneDrive into Dataverse and then index them. And then your agent has access to those and it works better. And I was like, why is that the case? And Mark's like, I don't know. We just kept trying that and it kept seeing it was different. And you're like, you've got to, it just gets confusing. So when you upload, like Bo's saying this, when you upload the content to the agent and not just give it access to it, it becomes embedded knowledge. That is something we can do with a declarative agent too. That's new inside of ATK as of Ignite. There was a limitation with Visual Studio Code that it wasn't working at Ignite. I don't know if it is working, but there's a little trick to make it working that I'm going to show you how to do next week in my workshop to make sure the embedded knowledge does get included inside that agent. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Jesse. Harsha said automated Copilot agents versus Power Automate Flow. I don't know if that's a question, Harsha. Let's see, let me just keep scrolling back here, see if there's anybody else. You enjoyed the session. You covered everything in depth. Thank you. You're welcome, Harsha. I'm working on the same use case data that is outside Microsoft. I'm not sure what that means. Microsoft is changing Lite back to Agent Builder. Nothing stays the same. Where did you, I'm curious, Jesse, where you saw that, because I've been trying to track that down. I still haven't caught up with all the Ignite stuff. I think we got all those other answers. I did see, so Jim, if you're still here, you asked if you could see an agent. I'll tell you what, I will go to the top of the hour and then we'll stop. Let me show you what a declarative agent looks like. So let me show you what I've got here. So notice this is an agent that we're going to build next week, or this is part of, I didn't want to click that. I don't want to go into OneNote. Ugh. There, so documents. So notice I have a document here called PTO policy, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna build a part-time off request agent. And this is our policy for PTO requests. So it's gonna say things like, here are the countries that are not allowed, gotta submit your request within X number of days of when you're gonna leave, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if I come over here we go. So this is what my agent looks like. So the gist of it is, here's my declarative agent manifest, right? So just show you what this guy looks like. Now, I'm not going to run him because it's going to take too long to get him running, and I've already gone like 22 minutes over, and I don't want to take up the rest of it. This is not what I want. I want to go to, so that's the Teams app right here. Okay. So if you've ever built a Teams app, same. But if I come down here, you will find there's a section for the declarative agents that are in this app. So down here, I've got one. It's referencing the it's called Repair Declarative Agent. Just ignore the fact that it's got a misname here. This is my PTO one. So if I look at this guy, what he does is he has some metadata. So he'll have a name, PTO request, a description, and then he's got a couple different sections here. Now, I'm only showing 2 or 3 sections right here. There's a whole nother section where I can define actions and kind of called REST APIs or MCP servers or stuff. But here I've got a list of instructions. So this is where I was saying that, hey, when we did our demo last week, Mark was showing when he was building it out using Copilot Studio, he was using topics in Copilot Studio, which we don't have in the Agents Toolkit. Hopefully one day we'll get there. Well, if I look at this instruction, what I did is do a word wrap here. He was creating a topic so that when the user said they wanted to do a PTO request, it kind of coached the user through telling them, when did you want to leave? Where are you going to go? How long are you going to be gone? Stuff like that. Okay. And it was doing that and using topics and entities and variables as part of the whole thing. So it's taken him 15, 20 minutes to explain it all and to kind of walk through it. And I was like, well, that's just like some prompt engineering. So what I told it is, hey, you're going to assist user in submitting the valid PTO request. So you're going to start by greeting the user. When they ask for a PTO request, here's some examples. So I give it some examples. This is just prompt engineering, right? So then I say, here's some different ways people ask for vacation. Request PTO, submit PTO requests, time off application, whatever. And then I want it to respond and say, collect the following required inputs. Try to determine the initial request, but if they're missing or unclear, prompt the user with the corresponding response. I know that a GPT style, that a GPT model since 4.0, or actually 3.5, that if you, and actually this works well for Claude as well, or for the Sonnet and Opus models, if you put a string in curly brackets, that does a really good job of saying this is a variable. So what I'm saying here is that when the user prompts and say, I want some time off, my agent is going to look at their prompt and say, can I figure out based on what they said, what they want? And with that, no. So I'm going to say, cool, when's your PTO going to start? How many hours do you want? And where are you going on vacation? And as I answer those questions, it'll stuff those values into these variables. If I was a Copilot Studio, I have to create a whole topic and create variables and entities and kind of walk through that whole coaching, kind of a pain. Or when I put the prompt in here, it says, literally in my demo that I was doing on stage last week, I was like, I want to go away to Paris on a long weekend starting this coming Friday. And it came back and go, cool. So you want to go to Paris starting this Friday. Can you confirm that that's December the 5th? And you want to go for a long weekend. Do you want to leave on the 5th and come back like on the Monday or Tuesday? And I confirmed with it, but it also figured out, going, okay, cool. I can figure out how many hours that is as well. And it figured it all out for me based on what I told it. All right. Pretty cool. Yeah, Jason, they have heard that. They have definitely heard that because I asked them that last fall. So Jason said, a feature request for my Microsoft contacts, enable headless Copilot agent interaction. I want to put your own AI, UI in front of it instead of their interfaces like Azure Agent API, but for these M365 Copilots, you can do that. You want to look at the Copilot API called Chat. It's currently in public preview. Basically what it is it allows you to, through an API, submit a prompt over to Copilot, and like that spaghetti thing I showed you at the beginning, walk through how all this stuff works. You basically use an API to send it to the orchestrator. It does all that stuff, and the response comes right back. So yes, you can totally do that. Oh, look at Bo. Man, Bo, I got to put you on the payroll. You're totally like finishing my sentence for me. Like you're right there. Exactly. You grab the link and put it in there. And yes, check out those limitations on that API. You still got to pay for the licensing. I still got to pay for a license. It's not as good as it's still preview. So it's like, make sure you give them feedback early and often. But yeah, that's definitely one that's interesting there. I would have liked to have seen this API be a little bit more like what Bedrock does, but what AWS Bedrock does. Like I've got work from someone that they've got some agents over in Bedrock, and we created some declarative agents that actually were essentially wrappers to the Bedrock agent. Bedrock has a thing called an invocation API that essentially is just like, it's just very transparent. It's like, I just want to send you the same thing and give me everything back. So basically Copilot was using Bedrock to do most of its work. Kind of funny. Anyway, so this is like, these were the instructions. Jim, I hope you're still around. If you're not, hope you're watching the recording. If not, everyone else is benefiting. I have these conversation starters. So these are the little bubbles that show up at the bottom when you go to Copilot. And then I've got these capabilities. So what I did in these capabilities was notice that I have a capability called OneDrive and SharePoint, and I listed out a file by its GUID as a capability. Where did I get that GUID? Remember, it starts with 89FE42. So last thing I'm going to do before I stop our call here. If I come over here to PTO policy, if I select it, I go up at the URL, and I look at the source doc property, I see %7B, that is the code for that, 89FE427A. Come back out, grab that ID, come over here, there's the ID of that file, and then in my instructions, I coached it and I said, so you want to go to summarize the result of using the PTO policy document listed as the OneDrive and SharePoint capability to check the policy for restrictions for the PTO request. I basically coached the agent to say, I gave you some knowledge in your JSON file. Use that knowledge as the policy that I want you to go check before you grant the PTO request. There are a lot of other things we can do with these capabilities. We can point to other SharePoint content. We can use code interpreter, which is allowing me to go get a bunch of data, and it will write Python code for me. I don't know Python, so it's going to write it for me to basically create a data visualization. Dataverse, I can say, I want you to go get, look up data inside of different tables. I can go to different graph connectors. These are called Copilot connectors, but they used to be called graph connectors. So in code, they're always going to be the old name. Graphic art, use Microsoft Designer to generate a picture. People, I can go do web search. I can search for messages in Microsoft Teams where I can filter down to specific channels, etc. A bunch of options here. So whole bunch of stuff we can do with this, right? Okay, that's everything. I have gone way over the time that I said I was going to. This is now a 2-hour-long webinar. That was not my intention. And yeah. So at any rate, I'm going to go and wrap it up right now. If you have any questions, please feel free to go to where the webinar, the recording is going to be posted on my site on voitanos.io. Go to the webinars. For this webinar, if you go to the bottom, there's a spot where you can drop a question. Go ahead and drop a question. I'm happy to get back to you. And I know I'm going to see some of you. I would hope to see even more of you in my workshop next week to learn how to do this with declarative agents. Just want to be clear. I don't dislike Copilot Studio. I dislike that Microsoft pushes it as like the primary option for creating agents. And your experience today, what I'm seeing a lot of you got a lot of surprises and stuff in your faces. And based on the comments, your experience is the same experience I get every single time I talk about this stuff. A lot of people are like, what? How did you figure this out? And a lot of it is you experience it. I dug through the notes. I talked to people who are doing this. We see the same things. We try things out. We get confirmation from Microsoft. Sometimes Microsoft tries to avoid the answer. But yeah, I think it just makes sense to just better knowing what you can and can't do. All right. All right, everybody. That's as far as I want to go with this. I hope you all have a great rest of the day. And again, hope to see you next week. Bye, everybody. No. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no.